important is Josh Pritchard to the whole, development? Because, as you say, the more your stable grows, the more help you need. He's been with you for such a long time. He's kind of a great trainer in his own right.
He is a great trainer, and that's what people haven't yet seen. He can work the mitts. He gets things from a technical standpoint. He understands biomechanics. He only had 5 fights when he was like 19, 20, so he never actually was able to show how good he was as a boxer. But he could do 8 rounds at 19 years of age with Carl Frampton, like nip and tuck, like unbelievable talent. He really was, and it's such a shame that what's happened to him. But that's not lost information. I remember when I decided to stop boxing, there was actually a GB coach called Lee Pullen, who used to work the corner with my dad. Like, it was like the calm and the crazy, you know what I mean? My dad was always a bit hot-headed and super calm, yeah. So, but Lee said to me, he said, Shane, that's all information, that's all stored information that you've built over those 8 years of training. Don't let it go to waste. And I didn't, and I've put it all into now, like what I'm doing, and that's a process that you learn. And something like Josh, like, he knows how to cut weight, he knows how to spar lots of rounds, he knows when you're feeling flat what to do, like how to get through sessions. And then he also completely gets the technical side, because he's watched it day in, day out for the last, his first fight with me was second Santa Cruz fight, so January 2017. So he's been here a long time, and he has lots of information. Got a calm, mature head on his shoulders. Now, by me bringing development kids coming through, because there's loads of kids that would want to come down to the gym, that they'll maybe get a little less sessions with me, but they're getting a bit like, they're getting 50-50 time, or even 60% of the time with me, 40% of the time with Josh, and it will allow him to really progress as a coach. Do you know what I mean?
It must have been perfect for you to be his trainer at a time when he realised he couldn't box anymore, because you'd been through it and transitioned into training, and then you encouraged him presumably to do the same thing. If he'd have been with another trainer, that might not have been the path he took, I guess. Definitely,
yeah. He was working in Michael Kors, and I just said, I had Steve Broughton, who's now looking after Joe Joyce. He was my assistant for 4 years or something. I can't remember how many years, for maybe a bit longer. He was my assistant from 2012 to 2017, and he decided to move on, and we decided to part ways. And I just said, look, there's an opportunity, Josh. I know it's a bit of a different role, and it might be a hard pill to swallow, but the opportunity's there. And he just grabbed it with both hands, handed his notice in. 2 weeks later, we flew to Vegas, to do our training camp. And
not a bad place to start, really, is it, if you're going to embark on a new career?
Unfortunately, we started with a loss, but it wasn't a split decision. It was like a majority. Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
I think it was a majority.
Yeah. So, starting at the top level. Actually, we didn't, because we had Taylor on the undercard. He boxed 8 rounds, so we had a win before that. But no, it's been a great journey. And he's seen George completely transition. He had that later on that year. We had George winning the world title. We had, he wasn't actually in the corner for David Hay versus Belly when the Achilles went. Steve was. So I put Steve in contact with David, and Steve was looking after him when I was training Frampton in Vegas, because David didn't want to come to Vegas. And then Steve, that was Steve's last fight with me. But then after that, we've had George wins, we've had Taylor becoming unified world champion, we've had Campbell fighting Lomachenko, like loads of fantastic nights. So in terms of experience, that's, from a coach's standpoint, he's seen it at the top level. He just hasn't been the main voice, but he's been a huge part.
How does success as a trainer, and I'm sure you've answered this loads of times, compare to the feeling of satisfaction when you succeed as a fighter?
I didn't get much satisfaction. Honestly, I genuinely didn't as a fighter. And I was actually chatting about this the other day. Even winning the Irish on the 21s and stuff, and it just didn't necessarily do it for me. Do you know what I mean? Also seniors and stuff. I enjoyed the process, and that's why I think I'm suited to this side of it. Working on getting better day in, day out, and I love the sparring, I love the training, and that's something that I miss, is all the sparring and the physicality of it. But you know, it's definitely, personally, it's more rewarding for me to see somebody develop. You know, like I can take someone that has all the attributes, like Daniel, like all the attributes, but he's just not able to put them together. You know, and then it's like, get him to do this, get him to do that, and then if it's not digesting, figuring out in a way that makes him click. You know what I mean? Okay, then think about the foot. Don't think about anything else, just think about the foot. So then
he starts to tailor it specifically.
Yeah, because certain people, the cues are hip. You know, the cues are head. Do you know what I mean? Throw the head in, throw the hip in, turn the foot. Like, but it's just tweaking it, and then putting it into movement, and then putting it into sparring, and then putting it into the fights, and then seeing them as an individual grow. You know, not just, you know, being like, all fighters have got confidence, but some fighters struggle with confidence more than others. Do you know what I mean? So then just help build them as not just fighters but as people. You know, and then next thing you know, they're unified world champion, or they're a world champion, or they're a British or Commonwealth. It's a nice process.